Hey guys, this is Bandito Bane, the well-rounded nerd, the Super Spider-Man fan, and the Warhammer noob. And today I am going to be telling you about my thoughts and hopes for the upcoming Joe Kelly run, and kicking it off with a very impressive ballsy move with the Eight Deaths of Spider-Man. And I am happy to see the baton is being passed to a more well-established writer than Zeb Wells, and I would want to see this go from like bad to better. And we have seen this gone from good. We have seen this with other Spider-Man arcs runs. We have seen it with Dennis O'Neil. He was a great Batman writer, but a terrible Spider-Man writer. And he was later he later left it to J.M. DeMatteis, who was one of the best Spider-Man writers. We also saw it with Howard Mackie, who had a great run in Ghost Rider, but he did it very badly with Spider-Man, and he left it to J. Michael Straczynski, the modern father of Spider-Man. And then we saw it with Dan Slott in his later years. I guess he was being burned out as he kept trying to make Spider-Man more into Batman, but that didn't hit home with the readers. So he left it, and then we got Nick Spencer, and he has a very underrated run in my opinion. But that left us with Zeb Wells, and we've had bad runs, but we've always had a greater run afterwards. So here are some of my thoughts and my hopes that I hope that will get happen within the next few pages and the next few months with Joe Kelly at the helm of Amazing Spider-Man. Now, Zeb Wells' run has been very, 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 very disappointing, to say the least. The thing I hated most about his run is his constant need to use a mystery box. The mystery box element can be used good sometimes, but his constant need to use it for events that have yet to that have happened, and it really started to grind my gears. And a lot of this will have to do with his first story with What Did Peter Do? And we learned that Peter actually broke into some of his allies to get Mary Jane back. Well, he broke into some of his allies' bunkers and stole tech so he could be able to get Mary Jane back. And we all learned that later it was actually Mephisto and the God of Mischief who actually made all this happen. And it was all their planning to basically break Peter and Mary Jane up. And then we see Mary Jane treat Peter like crap throughout most of the book. And then it's basically him trying to get over everything. And I just got tired of seeing Peter as a sad sap. And then he's like, oh, I'm okay, I'm better now. And then you have like some stories which go nowhere. And basically characters who are introduced who wound up doing nothing. And then you have like a shocking death just for the case of a shocking death. And then you have basically stories like Gang Wars where Peter is subjected as a side character, and the fact that we have so much bad dialogue going on. I mean, Zeb Wells is a good writer. His Hellions run was pretty much the only book that was written well in the Krakoa era of X-Men, and I wouldn't mind seeing him go back to the X-Men after he's done with Spider-Man. But I would want to see him be far away from Spider-Man, because I was actually excited that Zeb Wells was going to come in, because he's done Spider-Man in the past, but he's only done the Spectacular Spider-Man and what Tangled Web of Spider-Man, but he has not done mainstream Amazing Spider-Man, and that really did a lot of numbers on people, and especially with the fact with the character of Paul, who a lot of fans say is a self-insert, which he pretty much embraced because now he has his Twitter handle as Paul. And now a lot of people are just, including myself, are just waiting for the day that he leaves. And when it was announced that Joe Kelly was taking over, I actually jumped up in joy because Joe Kelly was actually one of the best Spider-Man writers. He did Nonstop Spider-Man, Savage Spider-Man, some of the Amazing Spider-Man for the Dan Slott run. He did the Grim Hunt, he did the Gauntlet, and he's even credited to DC having some of the best Justice League run, and he even is credited to being the co-creator of Ben 10. Joe Kelly is a veteran. He has been in here for almost 40 years in the comic book industry, and he, besides Mark Millar and maybe even J.M. DeMatteis, and J. Michael Straczynski, I would love to see him doing the Spider-Man as the head writer. And that doesn't mean that hopefully he gets it right. I mean, I hope he gets it right, but we'll see in the coming future. Here are some actual hopes that I get to see in the upcoming run of Joe Kelly, if it's either in the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man or in his future run. And I just hope that we see this, because the fans really want a good Spider-Man book after Zeb Wells completely left a black mark in Spider-Man history. The first thing I'd want to see is Peter getting his trademark wit and sense of humor back, and not having him be such a sad sack. Throughout the first part of Zeb Wells' run, Peter was like such in a sad, depressive state that it really hit home for me, because I suffer from depression and social anxiety, and I don't want to read my favorite superhero going through this. And I was so convinced that at one point Peter would commit self-deletion, and this really did a number for me. I mean, seeing everybody around Peter so happy, so well, carefree, but then him being treated like a pariah by everybody else, and him losing hope for everything, him just wearing the mask as a way of being just a machine, so that he can just continue to live and move on. And this really did bring me the wrong way. I mean, one of the things that Joe Kelly is known for is his trademark sense of humor and his wit for certain characters, and I've seen that done when he did the crossover between Spider-Man and Deadpool, and went to see two hilarious guys who are known for their wit and their type of language to draw off each other. It was very funny to see that type, and I really want to see Peter as that type of smart alecky sense of humor type of guy, and I wouldn't mind seeing Peter as this tragic hero at all, because I don't want to see him, because while Spider-Man isn't meant to be happy all the time, he still fights for the happiness he does have. And this really did rub a lot of fans the wrong way, especially of how he got this way. And that pretty much sums up what I want with his wit. Next, I'd want to see him bring in more memorable side characters and actually have Peter work with the side characters that have been established. One of the things that Spider-Man has been known is that his support cast has always been one of his biggest strengths it as a character. And whether it be Aunt May, J. Jonah Jameson, Robbie, or his son Randall, or even Flash Thompson, or to an extent Harry Osborn. But we didn't get that here. We got Felicia while he was still dating her. We had Mary Jane and Paul We had Forgettable Shay, we had Wreck Rap, Miss Marvel, and and Chasm. But we didn't get any of the more memorable ones. I mean, he was ostracized by Aunt May. He actually was in the outs of MJ, but then it's like, oh, well, oh, it's okay. I'll just hang out with you and the guy who you left me for. And Felicia basically left him because he was too healthy for her. But I want to see that the type of camaraderie that Peter had while he's working with this support cast. And I mean, a redeemed Norman Osborn is okay, but I mean, he's still the Green Goblin. And while he's trying to redeem himself, I would like to see other characters work off that, trying to help him, including Peter, and having like a complete support cast was one of the things that Dennis O'Neil had a problem with. He only had J. Jonah Jameson, Peter's current girlfriend at the time, and just the villains. And that's what I felt like when I was reading a Zeb Wells book. And even though it's like Spider-Man is never meant to be happy, he cranked the depression level up to 11. So everything was just so dark and dreary, and that's not the way Spider-Man is supposed to be written at some point. Not even Dan Slott had that type of dreariness in his Spider-Man books. So another thing, that's the other thing that I would like to see with Joe Kelly as soon as he takes over the book. I want to see a return of supporting characters, having a supporting cast that will work off Peter. They could work off themselves, like the Fantastic Four, J. Jonah Jameson, Flash Thompson, even though he's anti-Venom now, Felicia Hardy, Aunt May, Robbie, his son Randall, his old roommate and villain Boomerang, and the next one I especially want to see done is his relationship with Mary Jane. But speaking about support characters and characters, I want to see the persona of the characters that we've grown to love and respect represented better in Joe Kelly's future run. I mean, Peter has been portrayed as a simp and a beta male throughout this entire run by Zeb Wells, and Mary Jane has been, well, as MN Stash would say, a Scarlet Lady. And the ones that I see is portrayed in a better term would be Norman Osborn. And that's because he is going through a character arc of redemption, trying to right the wrongs of his past as the Green Goblin, which is one of the few things I actually like. But as for the rest of this cast, I would love to see Peter back to his old Spider-Man ways, never say die attitude, like going back to his wit, seeing his wit and his personality shine through, even through the darkest days. And I want to see Mary Jane as that fun, outgoing, extroverted herself as she was portrayed in the other arcs, not this cold, dismissive person who then rubs her happiness in her ex's face. And this is really a problem I've seen a lot in Zeb Wells' comics. He just doesn't seem to get these characters. He really does struggle with bringing people having a happy part. And that's what Spider-Man was about. He can't always be happy, but whenever he finds happiness, he will fight for that happiness. And that brings me to my next statement, what I wish will happen in the Joe Kelly run. The next thing I wish that Joe Kelly can fix is if he could repair the relationship between Peter and Mary Jane and hopefully bring them back together so One More Day can be undone. And I know I'm asking a lot. A lot of fans have been asking for this for so many years. And Dan Slott, well, during his tenure, he did not. He said that nobody wanted to read a story about Spider Dad. And Joe Quesada said that they wanted to do One More Day because Spider-Man was popular with the younger readers, that they wanted him to be more relatable to the younger readers. But we now have three other Spider people more relatable to younger readers. We have Miles, we have Spider Boy, we have Spider Gwen, and Peter can be like the den father, while Mary Jane is like the den mother to these rambunctious spider youngins. Just, and with the whole thing is that I love Mary Jane as a character, and a lot of people say that she's toxic as a character, and I agree. Some moments she's toxic, but I don't think that like the Sam Raimi depiction of Mary Jane was accurate to the comic books. If anything, I'd say Zendaya's representation of Mary Jane, even though she was introverted, was more of an accurate depiction of Mary Jane. And if you want to go further back, the animated series was better, had a perfect depiction of Mary Jane Watson. Fun, outgoing, and brave when she has to be. I mean, she knows Peter almost as good as, if not better than, Aunt May. A couple of examples is when the chameleon came into their apartment disguised as Peter, and she swung a bat at him because she knew it wasn't Peter. Another example would be when a clone of Peter came to her and she knew it wasn't Peter. And to bring this point home, one of the girlfriends of Mary Jane during the story arc, Red-Headed Stranger, actually made out with the chameleon while he was disguised as Peter. And Peter said that was not him. It was actually the chameleon. She thought it was basically an excuse to break up with him. So, and then there's the whole jackpot situation. They wanted to separate her to make her seem to be a hero called Jackpot, and it was just done so poorly, so terrible. I mean, who would even like her after her giving up on Peter, and basically living a life with a guy who basically helped end his world, and after that she expects him to accept her life, and it just boggles the mind sometimes. But like, MJ was already heroic in her own right. Like I mentioned, the chameleon thing, but also she jumped into the river, saving Peter from the lizard. She also went after Kane and saved Ben Reilly from him while she was pregnant, and she even shot the Green Goblin right before she called Shield to help Peter when he was being trapped by the Green Goblin. And this are all things that Mary Jane is known for. She's brave, she's courageous, she's outgoing. She loves being around the center of attention. And now it's just like the complete opposite of what she is. And it really boggles the mind. Like I said, it's just so upside down that I would want to see this done. Dan Slott said in some Twitters that if they go with the pro wedding crowd, then it'll be like killing the golden goose. But I got news for Dan Slott. The goose has finished laying golden eggs, and Nick Spencer's run, when he brought Peter and MJ back together again, it basically killed the goose entirely. And after Ultimate Spider-Man came out, it just destroyed any hopes that people would want Peter to be alone with different girlfriends with each run. I mean, the whole thing about Peter is having responsibility. J.M. DeMatteis says that Peter is a character about responsibility. Marriage is a responsibility in itself. And it's not going to be a happily ever after marriage. He's still a superhero. And if you want to keep MJ a superhero, keep her a superhero. But then there's two other superhero couples that suffer the same fate, same things as Peter and MJ did. And I'm talking about like Scott Summers and Jean Grey and Reed Richards and Sue Storm. They have suffered a lot, whether it be adultery, separation, divorce, even death, and they always end up back together. It's just one of the things that I cannot fathom with everything that Marvel has done, Marvel has been doing. They see that the MJ and Peter are one of the most popular couples in comic book history, and yet they don't want to capitalize on it. So I'm hoping that Joe Kelly can actually write a good ending for their story, or maybe just bringing back the romance. And then we have to do something about Paul. But I'll tell you what I hope will happen to Paul. The next thing I hope that I get to see happen within either the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man or in Joe Kelly's future run is I want to see Paul become a villain. And this has come forth because I was able to get my hands on Amazing Spider-Man 56, and Paul is basically doing this certain responsibility where he's looking for people who helped make the machine that destroyed his world with his dad. And the thing is that when we see a flashback where his dad starts killing the people and he starts the process of ending the world, but still it just looks like he just gave up. And I don't see how that is similar to Peter, because Peter did not give up after he realized that it was the crook that he let go that ended up killing his Uncle Ben. He used that pain, that suffering, to become Spider-Man. And Paul just seemed to me like he just gave up. He just let his dad destroy the world and not even trying to stop it. And he's going through a list of the certain scientists. He's basically meets one of them, and he's asking him if he went to college, if he knows anything about certain theories, and he's basically asking him. This guy is a blue collar worker, but in his world he was a scientist, and it's a little too late to make Paul a tragic character, but it's a perfect time to make Paul a tragic villain. I mean, you could just have Paul learn that one of the people that he saw in his world, in this world, is also a scientist, and not only that, he's trying to recreate something similar to the same effect that his dad did, that him and his dad did. And with what they did, with what is going on, what he knows is going to happen, he tries to stop him, but in the after effects, he ends up accidentally killing him. But then he just says, "It's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I did it for the better good." And this leads to Paul going down a dark path. Like there's a saying that the greatest the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I feel like this would be an excellent turn for Paul to become a bad guy. And with him trying to cover this up from Mary Jane, and like I could see this, like he could cause one of the deaths, like Peter in the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man. He could cause one of the deaths of Peter by stabbing him after Peter finds out that he's killed someone. And he's like, "It's not my fault, it's not my fault." And Peter will compare him to his father, and this is what happened. The last time he compared him to his father, Paul actually lashed out and punched him. And Paul will stab Peter, and this will cause him to die, lose one of his 8 lives. And Paul will be like, "It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I didn't want to do this. You forced me to do this. I'm taking responsibility of what I did in my world, so it won't happen in this world." And like, he thinks that Spider-Man's dead for all time, and he won't give out his secret until he sees him in the news fighting another demon still alive. And Paul is worried that he will tell MJ, and this will cause a rift between him and MJ, and to the fact that where Spider-Man will get Paul arrested, and then there will be no doubt that Paul was behind these murders. He says that it's not his fault. They pushed him to do this, and this will cause MJ to be distraught because she compared him to Peter, and it turns out she's wrong. And this would shatter her like it shattered Peter when he lost her. Except for her doing it alone, Peter will be there for her. And I think this will be an excellent way to actually repair their relationship. But then again, this will also shatter Paul, as he sees himself as just doing what is right, but his version of right is actually more as evil as his father. And this will put him down a dark path to actually make him a full-blown villain, like either the new version of the Green Goblin or the new emissary. But this is how I hope that Paul will end up happening, because let's face it, he's been hated from the community ever since he debuted in Amazing Spider-Man #1, or #2, when he was revealed to be MJ's new boyfriend. And we have been wanting to see him go either killed or actually become a villain. But I think him becoming a villain would actually be the best course. But also, there's one other object that I would love to see either Joe Kelly or the rest of the Spider-Man team bring this up. And this is basically with a new character that was introduced, and is going to make her debut in October. So now we come to the final hope that I want to see in either the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man or the upcoming Joe Kelly run. And that is, I want to see 616 Mayday be introduced. And a lot of people don't know this, but in the Clone Saga, Peter and Mary Jane were expecting a daughter, and they were going to name her May. But because of Norman's, he actually forced MJ into labor with a drug, and he kidnapped May by paying off the hospital staff and making Mary Jane think that she had a miscarriage. But in actuality, Norman and his agent actually kidnapped May, and it was never actually picked up upon until like we remembered when J.M. DeMatteis actually did Spider-Man's Forgotten Hunt or Craven's Forgotten Hunt, and that was where we learned that when how Peter got his powers back, and MJ was pregnant at the time when they were living in Portland. And I would like to see this story be brought in to the upcoming Spider-Man run, because it was revealed in the solicitations that a new Spider-Girl was going to be introduced in the upcoming Spider-Boy. And with Spider-Boy, it's a story about Riley Reid, who was erased from the current timeline. And if we look at One More Day and we look at Mayday, we know that she was actually erased from the current timeline by Mephisto. So what if she actually found a way to get from Mephisto's realm all the way to the current timeline, and she wants to try to help her mommy and daddy to get back together so they could help save the world. And I want to see this happen, because with with MJ and Paul, they had two kids that were basically figments of their past childhoods, made to bring them together by the god of mischief and Rabin, and so that they could shatter Peter. But if we got a actual character who was actually born from these two characters and brought them to people who were meant to be together, like Peter and MJ, it would be good. And it wouldn't be like a happily ever after. There's still going to be a superhero family. That it's going to be like the Fantastic Four or the X-Men, and especially with May and Peter and MJ, it would be like with her trying to get this one type of, trying to live with a couple of strangers who are her parents, and she was able to help them, but they're trying their best to incorporate their daughter into the lives that they have now. So I would love to see this, how this would play out, especially if they decide to reveal that this is actually May and not some clone of Cindy Moon or of Silk. And I just want to see good storytelling done by one of the best. And I think that Joe Kelly can do justice to this character. Right now, Spider Girl is in dance slots with the Spider Boy franchise, and I just hope that we can see a better representation of May in this comic book, and not taking anything from Steve DeFalco. I mean, I did love the Amazing Spider-Girl, but I would love to see the Amazing Spider-Girl in the 616, and this is basically what Mephisto is afraid of. He's afraid of their child. He's afraid of what she'll do in the future. That was what Nick Spencer explained it in his run. And I would love to see this done so it could help undo One More Day. So those are the things I hope to see, or maybe to some extent happen in Joe Kelly's upcoming run of Amazing Spider-Man, because so far, like I said, Zeb Wells has been really disappointing, and we've only hoped that we get better stories, especially from someone who knows Spider-Man so well as Joe Kelly does. Like I said, I want to see Peter's wit back. I want to see his sense of humor. I want to see a supporting cast brought back and help Peter through his everyday life. I want to see the supporting. I want to see characters act like they actually do. I want to see Peter and MJ back together again. I mean, come on, Marvel, give the fans what they want. And then I also want to see Paul become a villain, because he has such good makings to be a tragic villain. And finally, I want to see this new Spider-Girl be revealed as Mayday Parker, because I feel like when Mephisto and the God of Mischief actually got Paul and MJ together, they used two kids from their memories. So if two kids got two people who weren't meant to be together together, what would happen if the actual child of two people who were destined to be together shows up in front of them? I mean, the story just writes itself. So this is that is what I hope to see, but only the future will say for certain. I mean, it already looks like Marvel is taking steps to clean up the mess that Zeb Wells has left behind, and getting it ready for Joe Kelly, like with Spider-Man, Spider-Man Venom Wars, or Venom Wars Spider-Man, when the symbiote told Peter that he's basically lying to himself about his feelings for MJ, and on top of that, the November solicitations showed that Peter must choose between either the power of the symbiote or Mary Jane's life. And I don't think he would be willing to give up Mary Jane's life if he still if he still has strong feelings for her. So I just hope that we get better representation to these characters, because I feel like Zeb Wells has really dropped the ball on this, and will then, like I said, only the future will tell. But anyways, this has been Bandito Bane, the well-rounded nerd, the Super Spider-Man fan, and the Warhammer noob, saying keep playing, and God bless.